General, what do you want to do? Take them out, sir. Just give me the order. I don't know, General. How about surrender? Do you think they'll surrender, sir? They don't know what that means. They don't know what a white flag is, sir. They don't surrender. You know what I'll tell you, General? Fly over them a few times with those big, beautiful X-16s. The F-16s, they're very scary. I said, just go fly over them, and maybe you'll get them to surrender. They won't surrender, sir, but I'm going to do that. So a couple of days later, he said, sir, we flew over them, and they're not doing anything other than they want to fight. And I said, then what you have to do is you have to do what you have to do. And he did his job. And I'll tell you what, we defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. And I said, now you can come home. Come home, General, come home. I tell you that story because it's important for you to know our military is great. We just have incompetent leadership, grossly incompetent. And Putin went into, look, I mean, it's so sad to see, when he went into Ukraine and he, did what he did, he would have never done that. In a million years, it wasn't going to happen. I used to talk to him. It was the apple of his eye. I knew that. I knew him very well. I actually had a very good relationship with him. Everyone said, oh, that's horrible. Don't forget, I'm the one that closed down his pipeline. I'm the one that gave them the javelins, the anti-tank buster. When they say Obama gave him sheets, Trump gave him javelins. I was the worst thing that ever happened to Russia, but I got along with them. But think of it, I closed down the biggest job they ever had, which was a pipeline, which was going to make them so much. Biden, in his first week, approved the pipeline and let Russia build it. I had it turned down. They had started it, it was almost finished, and I stopped it. Who could do that but me? Nobody else is going to be able to do that. Nobody. I mean, I look at all these candidates, and they're lightweights. But no, nobody else is going to be able to do that. So I stopped that, did so many other things, and then the disinformation Democrats, these people are disinformation, it's all they're good at. They say, Trump is soft on Russia. I was soft on Russia. We wiped out all those tanks with the guns. I gave them, and all the sanctions I put on, and yet I got along with Putin. But the apple of his eye was Ukraine. I said, Vladimir, don't do it. It'll be so bad for you if you do it. We will hit you harder than anybody has ever hit you. You got lucky with Germany, they froze. You got lucky with Napoleon, they froze. We're not going to freeze. Missiles aren't freezing as they're pouring. And he didn't believe me, but he believed me 5%. That's all we needed, right? And I had the same conversation with President Xi of China. It was the same conversation with President Xi. I said, don't go into Taiwan, President. And I had a great relationship with him, too. It's funny. The ones I got along with best were the tough ones. The weak ones, the weak, squeamish ones, I didn't get along with them so well. I could give you some names, but I won't bother. But the tough ones, Kim Jong, he's going, please give us. Kim Jong-un, I got along with. Nobody tougher. Tremendous nuclear capability, nobody tougher. When we came down and when I had that little seating session, which is traditional with President Obama, he said, the single biggest problem we have is North Korea. I said, have you spoken to him? No. Have you called him? No, but he actually did 11 times, according to Kim Jong-un, which I believe. There aren't a lot of phones over there. They have one phone in the communist headquarters. So it's not a lot of phones. But we went very nasty. It was Little Rocket Man, remember? And it was all the different things. I was calling him names. He was calling me names. He said, I have a red button on my desk, and it works for nuclear. I said, I have a bigger button on my desk, and my button really works, And it was sort of dangerous. A lot of people thought it was dangerous. Then all of a sudden I got a call. I'd love to get together. And we got together. We saved the Olympics in South Korea. Nobody was going. Nobody was buying tickets. They didn't want to be bombed out of the stadium. And as soon as that happened, we even put North Korea into the Olympics. It was a whole thing. We did a great job. We get no credit for it, but we did a phenomenal job. And there was no threat of nuclear. Remember, I went there and I walked across. Secret Service and all of the people said, please don't walk into North Korea, but I did. I walked into it. And boy, there were a lot of guns pointed at me, I'll tell you. But we did, and we got along with them great. And we would have had to deal with them had the election not changed. We would have had to deal with Iran. Iran was dying to make a deal because we had them cut off. I told China, if you buy any oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with us. And they stopped buying oil. Everybody stopped. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made a deal that was great for everybody. No nuclear weapons. You can't give them nuclear weapons. Now they're going to have a nuclear weapon. Now you have, think of this, China is building in Cuba Okay, does anyone know that? They don't even talk about it. The fake news, they don't want to mention it because it's so bad. But China's building in Cuba. This is 90 miles off our coast, and nobody does. When I get in, they'll be gone within 48 hours. They will be. They will be. Can you imagine? When the Marxists toppled statues of our great heroes, I immediately signed an executive order stating that anybody who even lightly defaced a federal monument in Washington, remember they were going crazy, or statue would get 10 years in prison, no probation, no anything. And 3 years ago, in September of 2020, I proudly signed the world's very first ban on critical race theory, vanquishing those racist trainings from the federal government long before anyone else had ever heard of them. But all of that was only the beginning. With your support in 2024, we are going to put America first like never before, and we are going to finish the job that we so successfully started. You know, many people, it was 4 years, but many people say it was one of the most successful presidencies ever. Some people say it was the most successful presidency. When I get back into the Oval Office, I will totally obliterate the deep state. They will be obliterated. And we know all the good ones now. You know, when I went there, I'd only been to Washington 17 times in my life, according to the fake news, and 17 times, and never stayed there. So I wasn't a Washington establishment person, but I didn't know the people. I had to rely on people to give me names. And largely, we got great names. You know, we got the tax cut. We did so much. We rebuilt our military. But there are people that I wouldn't have put there. And I will fire all of these corrupt bureaucrats because now, better than maybe anybody else, I know the great ones. I know the smart ones. I know the dumb ones. I know the weak ones. I know the stupid ones. But I know the ones because I know everybody in Washington. I got a PhD in learning about the people of Washington, and those people that I introduced a little while are at the top of the list, too, I will tell you that. And we will create a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and all of the corruption that's gone on in our country. And before I even arrive at the Oval Office, just all I need is the victory. I don't have to be there yet, but the victory. Shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. We'll get that settled very quickly. As I said 2 days ago, Biden gave up a lot of secrets about the condition of our country and our military with the ammunition, which is very, very classified, and the cluster bombs going to Ukraine. And just the other day, he announced he's sending thousands and thousands of troops, despite the fact that the U.S. military has been so badly depleted already. We're sending thousands of troops. And the problem is we're in there for almost 200 billion, and Europe is in there for 20 billion. Now, Europe is the same size as us approximately. If you add all the countries, they're approximately the same size as us, as the United States. And why aren't they paying the same amount or more? But they're not. Not a single American mother or father should have to worry that their child will be sent to die in Eastern Europe. And I'll make a deal that's fair for Ukraine and fair for Russia. I mean, we got to make a deal. When I was on this crazy show on CNN, I don't know if anybody got to watch it, the town hall. You know, they supposedly got the highest ratings in 11 years, and they ended up firing the president over it. So we must have done well. They fired the president. It's supposed to be the opposite. You get your highest ratings, then they should give him a raise, right? But this conflict has to end, and when I'm president, it will be done very quickly, I believe in 24 hours. Now, somebody like Ron DeSantis cannot do it because he's owned and controlled by the globalist establishment who always puts America last. We all saw how quickly DeSantis reversed himself on Ukraine. You know, it's funny, the other day they were doing a straight news show, and they said, and ladies and gentlemen, we have Ron DeSantis here, and they screamed, no, it's DeSantis, you know. So that's called good branding. They can't even get his name right. The guy's introducing him as DeSantis. I love that. By the way I feel about him, just so you know, because it's a very personal meeting, it's a Saturday, we have nothing to do, right? We have nothing to do. But the way I feel, I got him elected. They'll tell you that. He was dead. He was losing to Adam Putnam by a margin like 30 points, some massive margin. It was over. Putnam had 30 million. He had no money. He came to see me. He said, he's looking for a job as a lawyer or something. Pizza parlor, lawyer. And he'll take anything. He begged me to endorse him. I said, listen, if I'm Abraham Lincoln, if I'm Lincoln and Washington together, we gave you a joint endorsement, you can't win, you're too far. No, sir. If you endorse me in the state of Florida, they love you in Florida. If you endorse me, I'll win. And he helped me on impeachment hoax number 1 and 2 a little bit. Not nearly like a great Jim Jordan or any of those guys, but you know, he was one of 175 congressmen, because about 175 would go on television. And I'd see him on television a little bit, so he was fighting. And I didn't know Putnam. So I said, you know what, Ron, let's give it a shot. So I said, give me something you'd like. He gave it to me. I thought it was terrible. I rewrote it. And he went up like a rocket ship. He went up so fast, and he ended up winning the primary very shortly thereafter in a landslide. Then he had to get the guy who, as you know, was a crackhead. But at the time, they thought he was the next great president. He was going to be a president of the United States, a handsome guy. He was going to be the president of the United States. And by the way, I will take Byron over this guy. This was not a good representative. This was not a good representative, Byron. But he was a handsome guy, looked good, spoke well, everything was good, and pretty much unbeatable. Him and Stacey Abrams, she was the hottest woman, he was the hottest man. They were going to have a great future. Didn't work out that way. But they took him, and Ron said, I don't think I can beat him. I said, you'll beat him. I did 3 rallies, thousands and thousands. You know the rallies, they're the greatest. We're starting the rallies again now. But the rallies are the greatest. And we had 3 of them, and he ends up winning. And he said, I won. I said, yeah, I told you you're going to win. Then 3.5 years later, they scream out a question to him. Will you run against the president? Will you run against him? He goes, I have no comment. I said, no comment? That son of a bitch is going to run against me. I got him elected. So if anybody has any questions as to why I take it a little personally, I do take that a little personally. I know I'm not supposed to. You know, a lot of pro-politicians say, don't ever tell a story like that. People don't care about loyalty. I said, I think they do care about loyalty, okay? I actually do. But I'm the only one that can make this promise. It's a big promise, especially for you in this room, because you're young and you have a big life ahead of you. I will prevent World War III. We're going into World War III. This whole thing about sending troops, there's going to be a point at which it's not going to be stopped. To stop the destruction of our national wealth, I will impose a border tariff on all foreign-made goods, everything coming into our country. They're ripping our country, and we're not going to let. We want our products made in American factories by American workers in Florida and other states. And I will also pass what we'll call the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. That means that if China is charging us 100% for something, we will charge them 100% for something. If they're 150, we will charge. Right now, they charge us 100. Now, I built it up because we took in billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars from China with the tariffs I put on. They want to take them off so badly, but they don't have the courage to do it because politically, I think it would be a disaster. But more importantly, financially for us, it would be a disaster. I saved the steel industry. The people that love me the most are the steel people, because you wouldn't have a steel industry right now. So if we had a war against China, we'd have to get our steel from China. Does that work? I don't think so. We need some tanks. We need steel. Let's get it from China. No, we saved the steel industry. We will gain total independence from China, and we will hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for unleashing the China virus upon the world. We will do that in some form, in some form. I will immediately terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration. Under Biden, other countries are emptying out their prisons, insane asylums, mental institutions, and dumping everyone, including the most vicious terrorists in the world, right into the USA. I have something. Did anyone ever hear the snake? Should I do it? Because we're going to go long. You know, we're going to go a little long. That means you're going to miss your dinner. But I have a feeling you like this better. Do you like this? Should I do the snake? Should I? The snake, you know, it's about 100 degrees out, so if we're outside, you'd say, no, please don't do this thing. But it's great. This was a great song written a long time ago, and we sort of recast it, but it's true. And it has to do with terrorism. We're allowing people to come in. They're going to destroy our country. We have to get them out. We have to take them out. So this has to do with the fact that people are coming into our country through our borders. Very sad and very terrible thing is happening, and many of these people are very bad. On her work, and this is, who's heard this, by the way, just before? Who's heard this? That's pretty good. It's amazing how few, because they do it, but I think it's pretty terrific. On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. Her pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, she cried, I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by her fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and as soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. She clutched him to her bosom. You're so beautiful, she cried. But if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died. She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying, thank you, ma'am, the snake gave her a vicious bite. Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman, sighed the vicious snake. I saved you, cried the woman, and you've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die. Shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in. That's the end. That's the end. The snake. And that's what we're doing. We're taking in people that are very, very dangerous people. We're allowing them to come in, and they're being sent in here by the millions and millions and millions. Following the Eisenhower model, we will use all necessary state, local, federal, and military resources to carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. I will use Title 42, which they ended, to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries immediately. And to further deter illegal immigration, I will sign a day one executive order ending automatic citizenship for the children of illegal aliens, which brings all of those family members in with them. As the horrific riots in France have proved, we must also redouble our efforts to ensure that anyone who comes to America shares our values and assimilates into our culture. We want people who can love our country and cherish our country. Under the Trump administration, we imposed extreme vetting and put on a powerful travel ban to keep radical Islamic terrorists and jihadists out of our country, and with great success. You know that. You didn't see anything about that for 4 years, did you? And you would have seen a lot of it. When I return to office, the travel ban is coming back even bigger and much stronger than before. The United States will not be condemned for the same fate as countries like France, which are truly going through hell right now. I will also order our government to deny entry to all communists and Marxists as required by law. Our bigger problems is getting the ones that we have here out. The ones that got elected to office. We got some bad people, Shifty Schiff, and these people are sick people. They're bad people. They're liars and bad people, and I believe they hate our country. Our Democrat-run cities are more dangerous now than they ever have been in history. Crime has risen 100, 200, and even 300%. It is out of control with no end in sight. Just a few months ago, a savage illegal alien criminal in Texas with 4 prior deportations walked into his neighbor's house and executed an 8-year-old boy and an 18-year-old man and 3 innocent women, 2 of whom died immediately, along with a 6-week-old baby and a 3-year-old girl. This all took place in a very short period of time. The same week, an illegal alien in the sanctuary state of California went on a multi-day killing rampage, stabbing to death a 50-year-old man, a 20-year-old college student, and attempted to murder a 64-year-old woman. In the Bronx 2 weeks ago, a savage criminal previously convicted of attempted murder went into the streets and sprayed a hail of bullets into a crowd, one of them hitting a precious 5-year-old girl while she was riding her father's car. In Washington, D.C., on the 4th of July, Washington, D.C., so beautiful and not beautiful anymore. I kept it beautiful. If I saw 1 tent or 2 tents or 3 tents as I was coming in from the airport, I'd have them taken down immediately because I knew that you'd have 100 tents and 1,000 tents if you don't do it. But you should see Washington, D.C. right now. In Washington, D.C. on the 4th of July, 9 people were viciously shot in a single drive-by shooting that targeted an Independence Day celebration, including a 9-year-old child. It's about time for the federal government to take over Washington, D.C. and run it properly, run it with sense, run it strongly, and end the crime. Washington, D.C., crime has become a crime capital of the world. Our national capital is not being taken care of the way it should be. We have to take care of it. We have to cherish it. We have to love it. And if we don't do that, it's very, very sad. You take a look at the numbers. People don't want to come in anymore. You have tents all over. The sidewalks smell. It's a horrible thing. The federal government has to take it over and do everything that has to be done, and it has to be tippy-top. It has to be perfect, and bring it back and make it better than it ever was, and we can do that pretty easily. Because the people that are running it don't have a clue, or they do have a clue and they don't want to see it good, but it is really bad. To stop the Marxist prosecutors who release rapists and murderers while prosecuting and persecuting conservatives, Republicans, and others, I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical district attorney and attorney general in America for their illegal, racist, and reverse enforcement of the law. To combat the scourge of homelessness that is plaguing Democrat-run cities, I will use every possible authority to get the homeless, drug-addicted, and dangerously deranged people off the streets and will get them medical care. But we can't have what's happening in San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York and Chicago and every other Democrat-run city. In all cases, they're Democrat-run. The liberal policies that indulge these social maladies are not compassionate at all. They're an insult to law-abiding, hardworking citizens who are living in danger. They're living in danger. People that love their country and they can't believe what's happening. They can't walk down the street. Atlanta, you can't walk down the street for a loaf of bread. You'll end up being shot. But then they come after me for a perfect phone call. You believe it? I make a perfect call. I have lawyers on the other end of the phone. On the other side, nobody said, oh, it's inappropriate. I only talk appropriate. I know how to talk. And I have a perfect phone call. They said, well, was he pushing the election? No, I was complaining about a rigged election. Very simple. And the other lawyers on the phone representing the state and the Secretary of State, if I said anything wrong, they would have said, we don't like what you said. How dare you say? No, they didn't say that. In fact, we set up another call for the next day. But now I understand that they're looking at that call. Think of it. You got murderers all over Atlanta. Nobody can walk out, and they come after me. Remember the perfect call I made with Ukraine, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky. That's why, I respect him, because he could have grandstanded and said, oh, I felt threatened. He didn't feel threatened because it was a perfect call. Fortunately, we had it taped. This is even more perfect. But they want to do anything because they're sick, deranged people. And I don't think the people of the country will stand for it. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. We want great schools to lead to great jobs and to great lives and great success. I will keep men out of women's sports. How ridiculous, how ridiculous. How ridiculous. And I will sign a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. Could you imagine 15 years ago having somebody stand up here and saying, we will stop child mutilation? Who would ever think of this? Our country is sick. The world is sick, frankly. And I will restore the Trump ban on transgender in the military. I had it stopped, totally stopped, and they approved it. I will not give one penny to any school that has to. If you have a vaccine mandate from kindergarten through college, you don't get anything. You don't get anything. I will also continue my long record of standing up to Big Pharma by creating a special presidential commission to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in childhood diseases, autoimmune disorders, autism, obesity, infertility, and other chronic health problems. Just as I did 4 years, for 4 years we did this, I will fully uphold and support the Second Amendment. Nobody has ever done a job like I've done on the Second Amendment. And I will tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but we defended the Second Amendment like nobody else could have. I will defend innocent life. And nobody's done more than I have. And I will move heaven and earth to fully secure our elections. Our goal will be one-day voting with only paper ballots. And of course, a thing called voter ID. The reason they don't want it is because without it, they can cheat. Actually, 88% of the Democrats want voter ID, but the leadership doesn't want because they can't cheat. Much harder to cheat. We want voter ID. One day, we want paper ballots. We'll have elections. France just had an election. 36 million people. By 10 o'clock in the evening, it was over. No complaints, it was over. You had a winner, you had a loser. But we go back to paper ballots, one-day voting. You can have one-day voting. It would be so good. You have these elections, they last 54 days. Where are those ballots? And I said, well, let's see. I think we moved them over to a different county. But until then, Republicans must compete and we must win. We have to win. This is what we must do to restore our country to greatness. The USA is a mess. Our economy is crashing. Inflation is totally out of control. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea have formed together as a menacing and very destructive and quite powerful coalition. Very powerful. Our currency is crashing, and we will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat in 200 years if we lose the world standard in currency. That would be unthinkable. Couldn't have happened 3 years ago. Couldn't have even happened. But it won't happen with me, not even a chance, just like Russia would never have invaded Ukraine. Never, never, ever. And by the way, they didn't. You know, a lot of Democrats even say, I got to say, Trump kept them. They didn't. They didn't even come close. They would have never done it. And China would not have even thought about raiding Taiwan. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. We are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. It's totally corrupt, and we won't let it happen. 2024 is our final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers. From our government, we will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists, Marxists, fascists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country. And we will rout the fake news media. We will defeat crooked Joe Biden, and we will drain the swamp once and for all. We made a lot of progress, but it's pretty deep. And in closing, the great silent majority is rising like never before. And under our leadership, the forgotten man and woman will be forgotten no longer. With your help, your love, your vote, we will put America first. We will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Turning Point. And God bless you all. God bless.